Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode ever of the Mind Over Mana broadcast. This is a long-form audio format where I just get really comfortable and just talk. This is a long-form sort of podcast audio blog, hybrid mishmash, doesn't really matter. Whatever it is, it is. I've got a sort of a backlog of topics that build up over the week, and some of them make great short-term or short-format videos. Others are really just more suited to chit-chatting, longer form, just sort of contemplative. So that's why I've started this. I'm really looking forward to it. It's therapeutic for me, to be quite honest. So if you find it appealing, listen along. Welcome aboard. Thanks for joining. It's just me over here. So I've got a few things on my mind today. So okay. Today, I'm going to talk about a number of things. I want to talk about Jumpstart in general. I want to talk about the next Jumpstart coming up. I want to talk about Commander Legends, its legacy, its effect. I definitely want to talk about the upcoming Commander Legends. I'd like to talk about New Capenna and the chase cards sort of prediction or anticipation that we all have. Box topper predictions. Is it an IP? Is it something else? I'd like to talk about boxes going out of print. What should you be buying now? What are you buying now? What am I buying now? How, more importantly, are we buying responsibly right now? World's a little crazy. Economy's getting a little bumpy. Is now a good time to pile into collectibles? Should you prepare accordingly for some form of a recession? I am not a financial advisor, never financial advice. It's just fun to talk about. And then what happens to the collectible market in general when an economy's down? We've got some precedent. So really fun, simple, quick stuff, and then some more bantery type of things. All of that coming up on this Mind Over Manacast. So first, Jumpstart. I was thinking about Jumpstart the other day when I heard and realized that Jumpstart is probably going out of print really soon. I mean, it's been out for a while, and they're not really going to leave a product like Jumpstart in print while the other version of Jumpstart is out. So we're getting the second Jumpstart pretty soon. It's summer, late summer, something like that, I believe, is when it's coming out. So they're not going to leave Jumpstart and Jumpstart 2 in print together, which means Jumpstart is about to go out of print. Is it something you should buy? Does that really matter? It seems like there may always be something available in terms of like a Jumpstart type product. I want to mention really quick why I think this is the perfect on-ramp product for Magic, just in general. I do feel like over the years, if you go way back like an old person like me can, Magic, even from the days of Alpha, right, the very first moment that Magic was printed, Richard Garfield insisted on there being booster packs, great, but he also wanted a way for you to more or less be able to play like right away, like buy a game. Because remember that Richard Garfield was a game designer. So typical game experience is that you kind of call that the out of the box, right? It's like a game is supposed to be ready out of the box. So the out of the box experience for an expandable trading card game isn't one that you really get. I mean, you just intuitively, unless you design it that way, you have to say, well, there's going to be a product for people to grab and buy and open up, and boom, you can get the idea of what the game is like. Then afterwards, you can, of course, go make it your own. So from day one, there have been sort of randomly organized starter decks. The term was always misleading because it wasn't really a deck. It was a deck-sized brick of cards, but you couldn't necessarily play with them. I mean, there was a smattering of lands and then an assortment of commons, uncommons, and 2 rares at the time. They did not really make a deck. I mean, you needed to get that and a little bit more to kind of have something that would even roughly play like a deck. So all that aside, over the years, we would eventually get to pre-constructed decks, always have kind of the tournament pack, which is kind of like the original Alpha Starter, just sort of a larger stack of, it's like 3 booster packs or 4 booster packs basically in a single, box. But the pre-constructed deck was kind of the on-ramp product, but they weren't really designed with new players in mind necessarily, because the cards from Standard, as complicated as they were in these products. So you kind of really needed to know how to play the game. Fast forward, and then core sets start to come out Wizards had paused core sets for a little while. We get into the era of the Planeswalker and the Planeswalker decks. We had a ton of products in the interim, though. You've got dual decks. You could ramble and rattle and list off all the products and attempts Wizards has made over the years at putting something out there for people to grab onto. The problem I think that they've encountered in making starter level things like Planeswalker decks is there's no reason for an experienced player to buy that product. This is sort of the demarcation point for this conversation here. We all understand that every card game's got some history of making decks or something you can buy off the shelf and get the idea of how to play the game with it. Great. Magic has struggled to find a sustainable version of that, or so it would appear, for a long time. And a lot of us thought that Planeswalker decks, and if you're unfamiliar, a Planeswalker deck was a pre-constructed deck ready to play. That the sort of face card of the packaging was a foil version of a Planeswalker. And it's all cards from whatever current set it was released alongside. But that Planeswalker was unique to that deck, and it was technically legal in Standard, but it was so watered down and underpowered that it wouldn't create a sort of financial issue like arbitrage or something, where if that card was really good and really sought after for Standard, they wouldn't be able to keep the decks in stock on the shelves. Everyone would go hoard them and buy them and flip them on eBay or something. So they intentionally make these decks underwhelming and underpowered. As a result, and also they were including a booster pack in there. So you get the experience of like opening a pack and finding cards and understanding what would work with your deck or not. It was a great first experience. The problem, though, is that the decks weren't really that exciting. And once you've played them once, you're kind of over it. I mean, to be honest, I played many Planeswalker decks with a lot of new players, and you get to this really slow, grindy, like, I've got 5 vanilla creatures on the board and so do you, and neither of us can really do anything. And then it's me just like breaking eggs to see what happens, just in an attempt to move the game along. And it doesn't necessarily teach the new player the best game hygiene or strategy. So those products, I want to feel like they ultimately failed because they just didn't have anything in them that made everybody want to buy them. The vast majority of Magic players are somewhat experienced players, right? That's just by nature of something, is that your player base is experienced because they've bought into your game. They understand it. So no one really needed a Planeswalker deck unless you were just a hardcore collector. But at that point, the exclusive Planeswalker, just go buy it at your local game store as a single for $1 or $2. I mean, you don't need to spend $15.99 or something on these decks. So I think that's ultimately why they failed, is that they just didn't have a way, Wizards just didn't have a way to get people to buy them. So enter something like Jumpstart. So they've discontinued them, right? The sort of on-ramp product now is supposed to be these Commander precons. But as popular as Commander is, I don't know that that's the way to introduce someone in 8 minutes to what Magic is. You can't do that with a Commander deck. Now, Commander might be the most fun way for them to play in the long run, sure, arguably, but you've got to have a core experience. So that was a long-winded introduction to why I think Jumpstart, whoever figured this out, I hope that they stick around. Jumpstart, to me, I'm going to say perfect. You shouldn't say perfect too often. Jumpstart is the perfect on-ramp product for Magic in all aspects. It is not an intuitive product to me, I think, from a design point of view. If you thought of something like this before, definitely let me know, because I wouldn't ever really have thought that this is what a good like intro product needed to be for Magic. I didn't. I think this is a really clever design just as a product. So Jumpstart's awesome. The feeling of playing Magic is felt instantly when you crack open 2 Jumpstart packs, shuffle them together, and deal them up. You need a player to get 3, 4, 5 turns in to be like, okay, I get how the game is played. I understand the fundamentals, untap, upkeep, draw, play cards, attack, play cards, your turn. I can interact a little bit in between, my turn again. Like, I get it. You need 3, 4, 5 turns to get that. And the fact that the Jumpstart packs give you like a 40 card deck and a little bit of interest is perfect. That's like the perfect quick little cross section sample. So I think in terms of its simplicity, it's spot on. The cards, obviously, all of us have probably opened a Jumpstart pack or 2 at this point. The card selection and the card design is awesome. If there's something slightly complicated, the person across from you can figure it out. Or I think that they are just as complicated enough so as to not overwhelm a new player who's, clearly capable of playing this complicated game. The reason, obviously, that Jumpstart is successful is that it contains in that set a reason for experienced players to buy packs. You can reprint simple but powerful cards in Jumpstart. Doubling Season is a good example of a reprint I think you'll see. Super simple. If you're ever going to make a token, make 2 of them. If you're ever going to put a counter on something, put 2 of them. Simple. Done. $80 card. Would be really fun in a token deck in Jumpstart. I think the challenge is that obviously you can't include tokens, but I don't know that that's the end of the world, right? Jumpstart is awesome. Look no further than Allosaurus Shepherd or Craterhoof Behemoth, even cards like Tiny Bones or Emil. Like, you had these really powerful, awesome mythics that were included, are very playable, are very navigable for a new player, but the effects of, like, say, Allosaurus Shepherd on Legacy is not something that's going to resonate immediately with a new player. So I love Jumpstart for that reason. They have hit the perfect middle ground between easy enough to understand and fun for new players, and definitely a reason to buy this for experienced players. It's perfect. Also, you can spend $3 on a Jumpstart pack. Buy 2 of them, $6. You've got 2 Jumpstart packs. You're getting good, relevant cards. And the ability to sort of rinse, wash, repeat without shuffling up the same deck over and over and over again is available to you. You've got to spend a little more money, but for the price of a Planeswalker deck, you're basically getting 2 decks, 2 little 40-card decks now. So I really like it for that aspect. I think that Jumpstart should exist in perpetuity. It's just that good. So now, what do you see coming down the road in Jumpstart 2? I feel like it's more of the same, and I'm completely okay with that. I think that you've got more of the 20 card booster pack experience. There's going to be some cool reprints relevant to older players. I don't see them changing the formula up much at all. What would we be open to? I think anything. Honestly, I think anything. If they execute this product the same way they did the original Jumpstart, it's just going to sell like hotcakes. And you know what? I'm going to go out and buy a box for sure. I'm going to buy a box to keep for new players that I might interact with. I'm going to buy a box to open. I'm going to buy a bunch of boxes to save, because you never know. You might want to open them down the road for fun. You might run into more players. Your play group might want to give it a shot. A number of things. So I'm really excited for the future of Jumpstart here for sure. And Jumpstart 2, it's hard to really say what it'll be, but I think I'll also, that there's going to be a focus on Commander. There were so many cool legendaries that were thrown into the first Jumpstart. New Capenna. So like New Capenna is coming out. I know that Kamigawa Neon Dynasty is out right now. I love that set. It's awesome. I don't want to dwell on that as much because it's all out there. Like we know what's in the set. There's no surprises at this point. I'm looking ahead though to New Capenna, and I've got to say, as a collector, you know, the channel Mind Over Mana has a bit of a collector focus on it. You know, what's interesting out there, old, new, future, otherwise. And, you know, Neon Dynasty was awesome because of the chase card that was put in the collector boosters. I think at the time, I mentioned this in a video on YouTube, I got that wrong. I think a lot of people did. I don't think we really expected the fervor that was going to be incited by that particular chase card. So it was a legendary version of Hidetsugu. The card itself, not good. Definitely not good. Not playable in standard. Not a great commander at all. And I think that's obviously intentional. If they had done it to a really good card that got a lot of attention, I'm sure that they thought people would find some way to be upset about it, even though it doesn't make sense because they're only actually printing more than they would have normally printed because they've added chase versions of a card. Either way, great experiment, has gone over super successfully. Collector boosters sold out immediately. That doesn't usually happen. It takes a while. There's probably a small second wave of inventory, but that's it. I do not see Neon Dynasty collector boosters getting below $200 ever. Most collector boosters dip below the launch price of like $209, $215. You can look no further than Theros. Theros plunged. Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, I've picked those up for $160 here and there. I've bought both Midnight Hunt and Kaldheim for $150. Midnight Hunt for $145 for collector booster boxes, and everything in between. I have some Crimson Vow that I got for a little bit more than that, maybe $170, something along those lines. But wow, you know. All the collector boosters tank. Even Zendikar, like the other crazy one is Zendikar Rising's collector boosters. I remember I just didn't have the resources available at the time. And I remember looking at those and being like, I cannot believe that Zendikar Rising collector booster boxes are $180. Like, what gives? You know, I know that the standard cards aren't the most crushingly powerful around, but there are 2 expeditions in each of these. Like, those 2 cards alone could potentially pay for this box. Never mind that I have 12 collector boosters to open, you know, with borderless foil full art lands and such that are all being played and will all forever be played, I'm convinced. I think the modal dual face lands are awesome. They're going to be played forever. So even Zendikar Rising tank, you would love to buy a Zendikar Rising collector booster for $180 right now, or box. So the chase card notion, I think, is really helpful for Wizards. I think that they sell every collector booster box they print, though, and this is where the rub is. This is what I can't figure out. Let's assume Wizards sells every collector booster box that they print. They're not destroying any. They're not left with dud inventory. Like, it'll all eventually get sold, even though that might be surprising for something like Crimson Vow. So if it's all going to get sold, does it matter whether they put the chase card in or not? The answer is, oh yeah, yes. Why is that? It doesn't have anything to do with Magic. It has everything to do with competition for your dollars. Magic is in a world of growing card games. Sorry, it's in a world that is experiencing a boon in card games right now. MetaZoo, Flesh and Blood, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still popular. Dragon Ball Z has a popular card game. Final Fantasy is popular. Force of Will, Weiss. There are a number of Kickstarter, as we all know, Kickstarter TCGs out there. Wizards cannot just keep doing the same thing and expect people to stick around or not get, more importantly, distracted. We are creatures of habit. We are creatures that get distracted. If I get a little bit bored for just a moment and I'm at a store and say, I don't want another booster pack of Midnight Hunt. I've got what I want out of that set. I'm good. Ooh, what's this shiny new thing I've never seen before? There's mystery and intrigue and mystique. I don't understand it. I don't know what I'm looking at. There's new graphic design for me to take in. There's new art. There's new everything. There's shiny silver around the border, whatever it is. Wizards wants you to get distracted by their stuff, not by other people's stuff. So when they throw a chase card into a collector booster box, they make sure that you want to buy it, or they make sure you want to go get a collector booster pack, because in retail, Walmart, Target, you can get collector boosters. You buy them one at a time. You don't buy booster boxes from retail places. So you can go choose to spend your $24.99 in Target on a collector booster that might contain this $1,500 chase card. They want you distracted by them, not by other people. So if it's of little consequence to Wizards to make some card and just change the color of the border and only do that 1,000 times and say, yep, there's an ultra rare card out there. Good luck finding it. You guys can decide what it means to you. But what it means to us is fiscally nothing. Didn't cost us anything to do this. But in terms of sales volume, it meant everything. That guarantees that we can up the print run of collector booster boxes and get them out there, and we can sell them. Here's another thing to think about. If the quantity of collector booster boxes increases dramatically, if the quantity increases, does that put downward pressure on the price? I don't think so. Because when you put a chase card in a collector product like that, you incentivize people to open them. They're buying them because they want to try to find it. I will so much more easily justify spending $200 on a collector booster box and ripping all of those packs open because I want to enjoy the cards. But hey, if I get that collector card or that chase card, even better. That's icing on the cake here. So I think my theory, I have no idea. We won't really know for a while what the sort of impact is. But my take on this is that the extra supply, let's say if Wizards' ultimate goal was to just sell higher quantities, ever increasing quantities of collector booster boxes by continuing to print very rare chase cards, I don't think that it does anything or does much to the long-term price of a collector booster box if you were to save it and leave it unopened, because the amount of boxes getting opened, I think, is going to compensate for the amount of extra being printed compared to prior runs. So that's something to look out for and think about. As far as chase cards go, I thought it was a cool video that it did on some speculation. I thought that Wizards might lean into the gilding aspect of the kind of the 1920s and 30s, the kind of deco scene. So I made a prediction that I thought they would make cards that really did look like they were etched onto a gold plate and stuck in a box somewhere. So go check that out if you want. I'm sure there can be a link to it in the description of this video. I'm enjoying a delicious coffee right now. I'm a coffee fiend. I don't know if you are. Do you drink beverages while playing Magic? That's always something funny to think about. The horror stories of some dude knocking over a Dr. Pepper onto someone's commander deck. Oof. Yeah, my play group, we tend to try and avoid, or at least be careful of stuff like that. But I really love sipping a coffee early in the morning and just checking up on Magic news and thinking about what's out there before I start my day. So another topic pertinent to New Capenna is this notion of box topper. We do not know there's going to be a chase card. They've said there's something quote unquote very special in the New Capenna collector boxes, but we don't know what it is, or if that means chase card. But we do know that there's going to be a box topper. They have said this. What ultimately that box topper is, I'm not sure. We're going to find out soon, obviously. They'll definitely announce what that is before the set comes out. I thought it'd be fun to kind of speculate I am going to do this in an upcoming YouTube video, but my thoughts are that the IP tie-in has been really hit or miss so far for Wizards. Like the Ikoria Godzilla tie-in was pretty well received at the time. And then those cards only got more valuable. I think that, you know, with the growing popularity of Godzilla now, because there's a new film that came out kind of, perfectly timed just after Ikoria. And I think that just appreciation for Godzilla, Toho Media continues to put out really, really cool stuff like DVD collector boxes of all the old films. In fact, YouTube movies, if you're a YouTube premium subscriber, I gladly spend that every month. It is so worth it. They had just recently acquired all the Toho era Godzilla movies, and I burned through every one of them. I had them on either in the background or I'd watch them. They hold up shockingly well. If you have never seen, I mean, I'm assuming if you're a Magic fan, that the subject matter of Godzilla is at least in the same universe as the stuff that you're interested in. If you have never seen the original Toho era Godzilla, the first film, 1950s, go check it out. It holds up. It really does. I mean, you're watching it objectively through the lens of someone viewing a film from the 50s with a guy in a rubber suit as Godzilla. Like, okay, we get that. We know that. That's almost at this point in time why we're watching it. We'd love to see and say like, wow, how did they do this? Or how good did it look? Or how cheesy did it look? But the story, the acting, the cinematography, the lighting, the music, it is objectively good. Like, I'm not saying that in a way that is patronizing. So I think that that didn't fall flat because people like Godzilla. The cards, if you take a look, like the average price, I did a video on average price of a box topper, and the average price of a box topper from Ikoria, I think is hovering around like $29, $25, $29. That's because some are really pricey, some are not so pricey. But when you compare that to Crimson Vow, poor Crimson Vow, like, not only is the set not that good and not that well received, but the box toppers are just duds. I do not say that disrespectfully to Dracula, but the Dracula subject matter clearly was not that like critical to Magic players, or not that cherished as a media or a franchise or an IP. The average price of a box topper is like $1 or $2. I mean, it's just not good when you compare it to Godzilla. It's hard to tell. I don't think it's that hard to tell, really, but the counterpart in Ikoria, I call it the base set card that is the counterpart to the box topper version. The average price in Ikoria is a couple dollars, but the average price of the box topper is $25, $29. In Crimson Vow, it's like the average price of the box topper is a couple bucks, and the average price of the counterpart's $1. It just goes to show you that it's kind of a similar base card, price, but the ratio is obviously far different. So I think that Dracula as an IP was not the thing getting people to go out and buy boxes. Zendikar broke with the IP thing entirely and went with Masterpiece or Expeditions. And that was obviously, that was really successful. I hope, sidebar, I had another video come out, started to do shameless plugs for all my videos, but another video recently where I was talking about the value in Zendikar Rising, and that I think these boxes are just going to pop off as soon as they start to go out of print, or Magic stops, or Wizards stops releasing supply at $99 a box on Amazon. They're just going to ratchet up. Nobody can afford to sell them for more than $100 because you can buy them for $100 on Amazon. So there's no other way to do it. So those were successful because they, the other thing that Magic players like is, shocker, good cards, cards that work, cards that are relevant. So I like that. In New Capenna, the box topper, if it's an IP, I think there are few IPs that really make sense and would resonate with people. Like the first one that comes to mind, and this is kind of a sneak preview of my notes on the upcoming video, Batman is really the only one that comes to mind in terms of something that is related to the subject matter and popular enough with broad enough appeal for people to be excited about. I'm not saying that 5 warring crime families and Batman have anything to do with each other. No more than, Godzilla has anything to do with a plane where, people fight monsters, although the parallel is obviously a lot more similar. In the box toppers for Ikoria, Godzilla took a lot of different forms. The cards didn't need to sort of relate to each other very much. Godzilla took on many different forms in each of those. So could Batman, be part of the IP for the box toppers? That sounds like it'd be very expensive to do, but the timing seems good because there's a new Batman movie that just came out. This, that, and the other. I don't know, and I can't think of another IP and intellectual property. I keep saying IP. I don't know of another IP that makes sense in terms of really drumming up excitement. And that's what a box topper should do. Abrupt shift of gears here. A box topper should get you excited. It should really incentivize you to buy the box. I think that there should be box toppers in every set. I think that it's the extra little reward for going ahead and buying a box worth of cards. Wizards, rather than give you $12 of my money by buying 3 packs from Target, I'm going to give you $100 of my money and buy an entire box from you. I otherwise would have given you 12. But you know what? Shoot. You've incentivized me to spend more than I thought. I'm getting more than I would have gotten because I'm spending more, but it's getting me to spend more. So I think box toppers honestly should be around. Like, good luck having another set come out and saying there is nothing special about this booster box. That'll be the same price as the last one, please. I think they need to be there. I really do. Wizards will continue to put chase cards and things, I'm convinced. But I think that the box topper has got to be a part of Magic because it's that interesting extra thing to get distracted by is all. So I don't know what else it could be. I mean, you can think of noir books and films and comics and such, but is there anything with like broad enough appeal to get people really excited? That's like, I'm not the biggest DC Marvel aficionado, right? But so that's almost good here because I would be pretty excited about a Batman IP. I think that would be actually pretty cool. Like, everybody's got some relationship to, a Batman in some way, shape, or form. They've seen a film, they know about it, they've seen a TV show when they were kids, they've seen a comic, they've read a comic, something. Everybody knows what Batman is. Everybody knows what Dracula is, but I can't say that I've had much to do with Dracula. Now, if Castlevania, instead of just hard Dracula, was the IP crossover for the box toppers, I don't know, maybe that would have had more appeal. Maybe if it was actually representing or referencing the video game a little more than, like, say, there's an animated series out. I don't know what they could have done differently for that one, but I sort of am having a hard time thinking about what the box topper could be for New Capenna, unless they go their separate ways with this idea of tying in intellectual properties. And then that, obviously, it could be anything. I mean, it could be anything. It could be the, a skyscraper treatment. It could be a list card. It could be it could be all the same card. Kind of like the buy a box promo is what almost used to be the box topper. The buy a box promo will always be a way to get sort of a box topper if you pre-order a box through your local game store. But every box having a box topper in it gives you a similar experience, and it's like I say, it incentivizes you to buy a box. I don't know what it could be. What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear what people are thinking about this. Another topic I wanted to broach really quick, boxes going out of print. Pretty sure that Commander Legends, we're going to segue into Commander Legends 2 here coming up. But stuff going out of print, it seems to me like as we gear up for New Capenna, you're going to start to see some sets go out of print. I mean, we've got a lot in standard. Right after standard rotates, there's obviously a smaller number of sets available to play with that are viable and make sense to leave in print. But as that clock keeps progressing, that pool of sets grows and grows. And once sets start going out of print, I always feel like they try to somehow be respectful of the window in which those cards are legal. Because if a set goes out of print in the middle of its standard life, which happens, then sometimes it makes the cards more expensive. But you'd like to think that maybe at that point if you're really, really invested in standard and you're a hardcore standard player, you hopefully have what you need from a set that's been out for 18 months at that point. Never assume, but I think that Commander Legends and Jumpstart are obviously going out of print very, very, very shortly because both of their next iterations are going to be in print. We've already talked about Jumpstart here. Commander Legends is next. And I've talked about this before, I honestly think that Commander Legends is going to pop once it goes out of print because the Chase Mythic reprints alone will forever buoy the price of those boxes. Think about that. Mana Drain, Vampiric Tutor, and Jeweled Lotus alone will buoy the price of those boxes. Those cards are always somewhere between $60 and $80 to $90 each. And people dogged Jeweled Lotus when that set came out, but then realized that Jeweled Lotus was actually pretty darn good if you could get one. And there's a reason that card, you can almost say years later at this point is $100. And the foil extended art, collector booster version is what, 3, 4, 5 times that? I mean, it's a lot of money. So they're not going to reprint Jeweled Lotus. There is no situation I see where Wizards says, you know what people need more of? This controversial busted card. They're not going to do that. It's like, when are they going to reprint Ragavan? Where? In what product are they reprinting an absolutely busted $90 Mythic? The problem that Wizards runs into with this, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm going to kind of thread it in here. The problem Wizards runs into when they use this term reprint equity is that they paint themselves into a corner sometimes with cards that people need. They print stuff that's so good and so powerful and pushed beyond all repair, like a Ragavan, that the card skyrockets in price. It's already from a premium product. The booster packs cost 3 times what a booster pack costs sometimes. The boxes cost $200 retail. So people aren't just going out and buying packs at the same rate that they're buying packs of a standard set. They're not opening them at the same rate. They're not selling boxes at the same rate. So these cards aren't as plentiful. There's never a rare or mythic in standard that is over $50. The last time I can remember a card in standard being consistently that much money was Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, in Dominaria. Like, that card was an absolutely critical part of the top tier deck. It was a mythic, it was a planeswalker, and everybody needed it for the top tier deck. So it was scarce. It was hard to get. it was expensive. It was $50, I remember, for the longest time, what seemed like the longest time. That does not happen very often. You just do not get cards that are that expensive in standard because they're in print, they're being opened every single day, and there's just not a way to keep a price that elevated. But Ragavan is in print and is $90, you know? So I digress, but Wizards talks about reprint equity. They say, you know, we're not going to just constantly reprint fetch lands. I mean, they don't say this, but they're not going to constantly reprint fetch lands to appease players because them including fetch lands in a product makes you want to buy that product. So if nobody needed fetch lands anymore because they print them at, you know, rare in every single set, they're losing the ability to really entice you to buy something by making that thing that they could have put in it so plentiful you don't even care about it anymore. That's the danger. So, you know, Ragavan, what do you do with Ragavan? Like, how do you implement a reprint of Ragavan without everybody going crazy? What's interesting, the precedent is something like Mana Drain. Like, Mana Drain has always been a really, really expensive card. $100, you know, $200 now in the era of like enhanced collectability. But putting a Mana Drain reprint out there in a number of sets was a really cool move. But people weren't climbing over each other, you know, ham-fisted, trying to get Mana Drain every day for years prior to that. Mana Drain just was Mana Drain. You either had it and played Legacy and Vintage, or you didn't. Ragavan, though, is a modern staple. Like, there is a lot more modern players than Vintage players, let's just say. I won't say Legacy, but Vintage players. So it's a lot more popular. It's a lot more ubiquitously played, because there are more people that play Modern. Tournament numbers will show that. So how do you reprint Ragavan? Ragavan's $90. Like, where do you put that? Do you put that? You probably only put that in. Where do you put that? The most premium of premiums. You put that in, you know, Double Masters 2. You know, the VIP edition, the $100 a booster pack product. Wizards paints themselves into a corner in a way with this, you know, with the reprint equity argument, because they make stuff that you can only very rarely reprint. But I think that they are more patient than we are. I think that Wizards knows what they've got around the corner. Obviously, we don't. So something like Double Masters, Double Masters 2, they'll throw Ragavan in there, sure. And if not this time, then next time. So that is a really long segue, or long tangent. But I think that Commander Legends will stay expensive. Like, those reprints, Vampiric Tutor, Mana Drain, and Jeweled Lotus, will buoy the price of those boxes on their own. It's a great buy. If you can pick up boxes for like $105 right now, I would do that all day. And Jumpstart at sub $90, I would buy that right now for sure. These products are going to be replaced by their newer versions, but that does not change the fact that, say, in Commander Legends, there is still not a Jeweled Lotus, Vampiric Tutor, or Mana Drain floating around in those booster boxes. And in Jumpstart, that still doesn't change the fact that there is potentially a Rhystic Study, Craterhoof Behemoth, Allosaurus Shepherd, Tiny Bones, any number of other things floating around in there. So, lastly, what I want to talk about, and I appreciate you listening, this has been excellent, is this idea that and this is sort of detached from Magic, but it's kind of an interesting thought. We are kind of teetering on the verge of a mild recession in the United States at the time of this recording. This is in March 2022. What happens to the collectibles market during times of recession? You kind of hear that when times are tough, people go and buy gold as a way to, they call that a store of value. You want to store your value in gold, something that's just going to kind of stay steady, as opposed to, selling everything and just holding on to money until everything starts getting better. But do people pile into collectibles? Like, should you go sell all your investments if you have them and buy a Mox Pearl and just sit on the sidelines and wait? what happens to things like luxuries, like trading card games, when there's a recession? Well, the worst recession we had in recent memory was in obviously 2008 to 2009, the financial crisis right after the mortgage collapse. And at that time, the sets that were out were, like Lorwyn, Morningtide, Shadowmoor, Eventide. Those sets didn't get opened a ton relative to other sets, and they were good sets. Like those sets were well received when they came out. I lived through it, I remember, and they've been well received to this day. Like people adore those sets. I thought they were so unique and so interesting. I loved the mechanics. I loved Wither in particular. It's like half of Infect. Creatures dealt damage in the form of -1/-1 counters. I loved that. They had cool archetypes. I loved playing Rakdos aggro at the time. They were printing just like all in Rakdos aggro cards into standard. I loved it. So the cards didn't get opened as much as a result. The singles are a little more scarce, and booster boxes are expensive, so you're not going to crack them to get singles out of them. A Lorwyn box is like, somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. I know that's a pretty big range. I don't remember off the top of my head, but what happens to collectibles in times of recession? Well, I think that they go down. That's what we've seen in the last couple years when there was this, the outbreak began. Let's just say the reserve list buy list was frozen. Prices plunged. People freaked out. They thought the world was ending, and everyone was, if they thought that they were vulnerable in life, they were going to let go of the things that they had a lot of money parked in, like collectible card games, in an attempt to feel a little safer. Because once everybody was in bad shape, that's the thinking. The thinking is, well, if I'm about to be in bad shape, everyone's about to be in bad shape. And if I'm not in a position to buy cards, no one else is. So I better sell these now before we're all collectively not in the position to buy them. And I think that's what you tend to see. It's, of course, going to vary. If someone's safe and comfortable, they're going to take advantage of people selling things and, that whole buy the dip mental. But I do not pay attention to markets in that way. I look at things in a really simple, clean timeline. I look at products when they come out, how cool they are, how well received they are, how much I like them. Do I enjoy them? Do I want to own them or not? And I buy them when I think they are attractively priced and really, really reasonable. For instance, standard set sealed booster boxes, a month, 2 months after launch. They stay in print for a while. Once the fanfares die down and the supply gets rejuvenated a little bit, and they're kind of, moving at a normal rate, you'll get them for the cheapest you're going to get them. That's kind of it. So that's when I pick up boxes of sets if I like them. It's pretty much it. I don't need to time a recession around that or try to, look at global events to time my purchase of Magic boxes. It's really just that simple. And then I hold on to them and I never let them go. That's pretty much it. Like I don't think that I would save money up thinking there's a recession coming and everyone's going to start flipping their vintage or letting their vintage cards go. In fact, I think that's quite the opposite. People who put money into high-end Magic cards, collectible, gradable, raw copies at the very least of vintage cards, ABU, Four Horsemen sets, those are the last things to get dumped. Someone's going to, sell their modern decks if they are in trouble, because those cards' prices pretty much, hover around where they should be, and they can buy back into it or something like that. But the cost of truly vintage collectible Magic cards is something that I think really only is on a slow trajectory upward forever. They are not buoyed by their prices aren't buoyed by their playability. Their prices are buoyed by them being a commodity. Whereas Liliana of the Veil was buoyed by her playability in Modern and Legacy. And now that there's a card that is sort of contending for the 3-drop slot in a lot of those decks, you can see Liliana of the Veil coming down from her $99 price tag, which she's held for so long now. It's kind of, that's just how those work. But Mox Pearl is not being viewed as more or less playable as time goes on. That's not really what it's about. So I say all of that just to remind everyone to be safe, be responsible, buy within your limits, set a budget, and enjoy the hobby. Do not, I say this all the time, do not buy cards with money you don't have. Do not go into debt buying Magic cards. I would hate for anybody to fall out of love with Magic or dislike it just because it didn't do something financially that you needed it to do. It doesn't know you own it. Remember that. Magic as an entity in the universe does not know that you own booster boxes of it that you'd like to see appreciate. It doesn't know that. It can't control that. You can control that. So be safe, be careful. Don't time the market or anything like that. That's how I try to live. Thank you for joining me. I think it's time to call it there. This has been the very first ever episode of the Mind Over Mana cast. If you feel like stopping by, I don't know how regularly we'll do this or I'll do this, but I really appreciate you listening to whoever out there has found this. This is really more therapy for me, a way to just talk to something other than a wall and get my thoughts out there. I felt a little preachy on this particular episode, kind of like, an old man saying, get off my lawn about a lot of things. Find some lighter topics next time, for sure. I'll keep scanning your comments on a lot of the videos I upload to YouTube to see what's on everybody's mind. I kind of keep notes and take a little list for just such an occasion as this. So thanks again for joining. I hope to see you or hear you or connect with you somehow in some way. And I really hope that you stick around for another installment one day of the Mind Over Mana cast. Until then, thank you so much for listening and take care.